Hello YouTube, this is Scarecrow Kaiser. I'm going to do a video here and talk about Shadow Paladins, and I feel like there's a lot of things off about them right now, so that's what I was going to talk about. First things first, this is their trigger lineup. We don't have a choice at the matter. Come February, we can get rid of this really bad stand trigger. Really bad. Like, stand triggers are really bad in this deck. Like, it's one of my biggest issues with the deck right now is running this stand trigger. It just doesn't do anything helpful. Every now and then, sure, it is a trigger. It does what it does, but for the most part, this trigger I feel like is holding me back very far. Like, at least when we finally get the second critical, we'll have more pressure to put on them, whereas this stand trigger, half the time you can't even stand something. But yeah, I'd really like to fix that problem. Next, the starter, full bow. Now, I'm sure not everyone's going to agree with me, but I really don't like running this. I really don't. I wish Shadow Paladins, I really wish, it's one of my biggest things I would change about them if I could change anything, is that we had a different starter. I really don't I don't like running this card. I wish we had something that could search for grade 3s or something. I need to have some kind of pioneer, I feel like, for this deck, because that's definitely something holding me back. Because sure, it's kind of cool or cute, I guess, if you get to ride Javelin turn 1 and you get that free grade 2, but if you don't, then bleh, awful, poopy. If you don't ride it, then the Javelins in your deck are just terrible, and you took that -1 that your opponent didn't, because your opponent probably has a starter that does something. And then there's the whole Blaster Dark thing, in relation to those two. This card is not very good at all. Your opponent almost never gives you the chance to zap something with them, let alone counterblasting 2 to kill something early in the game. Usually your opponent doesn't leave out anything that important early in the game, let alone give you the chance to actually zap it with Blaster Dark. And after that, Blaster Dark as a rear guard is just a vanilla. This card is not very good. And then another problem in relation to that is there are a lot of cards with great effects in here, but this deck can very often hit below that number they need to hit. They can often not hit that 16 mark, or you just won't have boosters and you won't be able to swing at anything. Cards like him, a little bit less of him, and then Maka and the Witch obviously can really hold you back when you're not able to hit the numbers you want. And then another problem is there's lots of amazing cards in the deck that can get you these pluses, and it's great and all, and for a while, etc. But there's 2 problems that go on when you do this, especially when you're talking about the Witch, the Ildona, and the Vipecar, is they F up your triggers. So many times you'll use Vipecar or Witch, and you'll call with Vipecar a trigger, your Witch will draw you a trigger, and your Ildana will limit break, draw 2, it'll be triggers, and then you'll drive check nothing. Now there is an art to playing around to get to the triggers when you want, but often with this deck you don't have the room to wait for that right moment. You kind of have to do things when you have to do them, and it's inaccurate. And these cards, although they're giving you pluses, in order for the deck to run like it does, you have to keep doing these things, and you're often milling yourself out. Well, not milling, like running out of cards in deck. It's a very frequent problem that the deck has, is that it mills out or gets dangerously close to milling out. And then on the topic of Maka here, she's a really cool card, but like my two problems with her are obviously a lack of power, and that she has to call the card she calls like right under her. And I've found very often my field is in such a manner that like you can't like do that. You'd have to, there's already a card under her, so it's kind of pointless. Now, I'm not saying that happens all the time or even the majority of the time, but it happens enough that it troubles me. And then, of course, like, to solve these problems of, like, low power, you could choose to run, like, more 10Ks and stuff. Because even with the javelins, they're hitting the sweet marks, but when you start running, like, more power and more vanillas, like these guys, you don't have room for your other cards that are kind of necessary for the deck to work, which have great effects with low power. And then if you want to balance it out and put in more power cards, and it's just, there seems like there's something really off about this deck right now. And then last, this card, I actually like this card, but I don't know. Sometimes you're forced to ride him early, and then, yeah. But overall, I like the card. And then there's the dragon. Like, I think the dragon's effect is pretty awful. The only thing redeeming quality of the dragon, I think, is that he's defensive, being that he's an 11, but there seems like there's something really off about Shadow Paladins right now. Tell me what you guys think. If you've played against them, your just general opinion, or if you do play them, do you feel like there's something missing? Like, I'm not saying it's like a bad deck or anything. I just feel like there's something extremely missing with them, like, let alone like the crit. And when I look at what comes out in February in set 5, it doesn't seem like it's going to be enough to help the problems I'm looking at. We'll get the crit, which will be really nice, so we can stop playing stands. And there is the cross-ride option, but I'm not sure that I'm a big fan of that, because the Dragon's Persona Blast is pretty awful. Hard to pull off at an extremely expensive cost. And most of the Shadow Paladins in the set are just not so great. Yeah. Tell me what you all think.